Warning, this video contains no sexually graphic images of any kind. If you came here to clop, you will be disappointed. I think we can all agree that sex is real. The reason you're watching this video right now is because human beings are genetically programmed to want to reproduce, and they've been at it for thousands of years. So long, in fact, that they've managed to invent the internet, and to a lesser extent YouTube. So, pretty cool. Good job, human race. You made my YouTube video. If you think about it, reproduction is one of the most normal things ever. Literally every living thing on Earth reproduces in some way, and it's all down to evolution. Go back to the very first living organisms on Earth. The microscopic organisms that formed in the primordial soup are technically alive because they have DNA and they can move a bit and they can split in two. So they do that and they make more organisms, they reproduce, they continue to grow as a species because they keep splitting. But at one point, one of these organisms, due to a random mutation, is created with no desire at all to reproduce itself. This odd outlier then dies and his legacy ends immediately. The only way to pass on his genes was to reproduce, but since his mutated genes determined that he didn't want to do that, it was doomed to end. Which logically means the only organisms that survive are the ones that want to reproduce and continue on their species. And all life on Earth is descended from those initial successful organisms. So with reproduction being so integral to everything we know, why is it so taboo to talk about it? Bring up talk of penis in the park and you will get scowls from passers-by. Introduce vagina into a conversation at a dinner party and people will tell you to stop it. Most of the time, the reasoning for this apparent rejection of such topics is that children might hear, and if children hear about sex, they will explode. And if they explode, they can't grow up to have sex and continue the human race, and then we'd all be worse off. But sometimes there are no children around. Sometimes in a completely adult setting, some people still don't want you to mention what your favorite porn star is because it's embarrassing. And I ask you, why? These people presumably have had sex, or at least know what sex is, and it's pretty much certain that every adult has watched porn at least once, or fantasized about sex. It's ingrained in our DNA. We all want to bang. So why is it embarrassing? Well, it's down to a number of factors. Some people just find it icky for their own personal reasons, but the more prominent cultural reason that people find it icky or inappropriate is because they used to be the kids that were sheltered from sex. Their parents hid mention of dick cock balls from them, the TV was censored during the time that they would be awake, and if they got caught learning and saying a sexual word, they would be punished. And this is the same with any bad words. Nothing about sex is really inherently bad or wrong, it's just what everybody thinks. Everybody realizes that it's inappropriate to talk about tits and ass to a 5-year-old, but the 5-year-old in question isn't going to be mentally damaged by that conversation. They may not appreciate it because they haven't hit puberty yet, and they don't understand why you'd want to touch a girl because they have cooties, but it's not going to turn them into a sex offender, unless you're literally telling them it's okay to rape. Which of course isn't true because that isn't consensual. If you're just talking about consensual sex to a child, they'll be perfectly fine in theory. The reason this doesn't actually work in practice though is because everywhere else they go, adults will be punishing them for repeating those sexual words that they were told. And if they get punished or sheltered too much, they're more likely to actually become mentally unstable sex offenders. So even the people that realize sex isn't inherently wrong will still adhere to the social norms and keep it away from children. If not for the child's sake, then for their own. Because talking about sex to a child can get you a rather lengthy prison sentence if you're unlucky, and no one wants to risk that. So the basic idea of all I just said is that sex isn't bad. Sex isn't rude or inappropriate. Sex is the most normal thing ever. With that in mind, let's go to the most important part of the video. The main event. The part that will ruin my pristine cancer-free argument. Ponies, and why it's okay to want to have sex with them. You see, the pony design from Gen 4 at least is very human and abstracted. It barely looks anything like a pony at all. They're all unrealistically coloured, except for a few like this one here. The muzzle is very short and almost looks like a nose. The manes are shaped like hairstyles that a human could easily sport. The head is so big in proportion to the body, which makes it look very small. The eyes are huge and have irises. Seriously, have you ever looked at a horse's eye? It's just black. And the hooves look very squishy and can hold things. Not to mention the things that ponies do are very human. Wearing clothes, making clothes, having a currency, living in houses, using pneumatic drills. It's so very human. And aside from the walk cycles, they don't move like ponies either. Look at this shit. I'd like to see a horse move like that, but you can't. So the ponies are very human. They're very human-like. But that doesn't immediately make them sexy, does it? Of course not. They're sexy because they have traits that resemble a certain kind of human. A kind of human that attracts heterosexual males and homosexual females. They got curves, girl! Look at that, it's like a circle. Oh yeah. The curves are attractive because human females, when they reach puberty, have their thighs widen, which is helpful in carrying and delivering a baby. Wider thighs means easier delivery, and is also the cause of that ass. It's a mark of a sexually capable woman, and men associate a large booty and wide thighs with a healthy partner, and are therefore attracted to it. So ponies having curves gives the illusion that they would be good at bearing children. It's not what actually goes through people's minds, but it's the association they make that causes the sexual attraction. And what clop artists do is they take that attraction and they exaggerate it and build upon it to make it sexier, for the benefit of themselves and other people. Oftentimes making the ponies more human by giving them hands and feet and giving the female ponies breasts. It's all in the effort to make the characters we know and love as human as possible in certain ways, so that we can enjoy them sexually. It isn't wrong, it isn't sick or twisted, it's just porn, and it's perfectly natural. You reserve the right to refuse it to be shown in certain places. You reserve the right to think it's really weird and horrible, but you do not reserve the right to judge and be prejudiced against people by what they do in their own time by themselves. These are all fictional characters after all. Nobody's getting hurt, and nobody will get hurt. Unless you decide to start fighting. Hey, thanks for watching the video. Pony Fuckcast made a video about this a little earlier than I did, so you should go look at theirs. They actually go into more detail. I'll just put a link here. Yeah. Thanks.